Welcome to Yoga Teacher Journeys, your podcast for all things yoga and mindful living. I'm Claire.
And I'm Bianca, and we're two yoga teachers sharing the insights and wisdom we've picked up along our journey so far.
Whether you're thinking about teacher training or exploring yoga as a way of life, join us weekly for inspiring conversations.
Let's go on this journey together. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode 17.
17.
Wow. Can't believe it. It hasn't been a year yet, has it? No.
Has not been a year, but we have been consistent-ish, which just means we keep showing up, which is amazing and so exciting. And location hasn't stopped us. Yay for technology.
Yeah, gosh. Where are you now? Were you here last time we did a pod? I can't remember. But let's fill everyone in.
I am now, let's say, the border sense Geneva. Technically in France, because the house is in France, but just on the border with Switzerland. And it's absolutely beautiful. The scenery is amazing. It's very calming. It's a lovely place to practice yoga. And I've just been enjoying the lake, the mountains, and just starting to get myself set up here. So really
nice.
Very
nice. I am still in India. I can't remember where I was last time we recorded.
In the mountains.
Oh, was I in the mountains? Okay, so from the mountains, we then went down to another little place which was more on the water. There was a lot of backwaters there, and we did like a houseboat tour. So we did like a night on a houseboat. That was really interesting. And now we are further down south in a place called where are we? Honestly, I'm like, where have we stopped now? Okay, we're in a place called Vakala. So yeah, more south. And I think we're going to continue to travel down south until we get to the next airport, basically. And then we're going to fly up north. So we're here for a few more days. The vibe here is there's a lot of yoga schools. There's a lot of nice little cafes. It's chill. You're by the beach, but you're actually up, there's huge cliffs as well. So it's really beautiful at nighttime because you're up high and then you can look down over the cliff, and yeah, it's really nice. So
that's amazing. And then plus you're going to an ashram soon, and I'm so curious to hear about that. We'll have to talk about it on the pod.
Yeah, we can do a pod on that. Not next week, maybe the week after. So I go to an ashram on Wednesday and I'm there for, I think it's 5 nights we're doing in the ashram. So that I'm very much looking forward to. Almost like a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I would be.
Yeah, because when it's like, obviously we've done a TTC, we've been practicing yoga, but being in an ashram, I just feel like it's quite it's a bold move.
Bold, and also I feel like when you go somewhere like that and you have the label of, well, yeah, I am a certified yoga teacher, you almost feel like there's expectations of you.
I'm just not going to say, no comment.
You're not? You're not going to say?
No, I'm just going to be there and I'm just going to fully be in it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Did
you practice
experience? I've done a bit of yoga before.
A little bit.
Because I know they have different classes. They have a beginners and an advanced class. So I don't know. We'll have to see what's what. But it's going to be an experience for sure. And my friend's coming along too. So
does your friend have a lot of experience with yoga?
Not so much.
Okay. That'll be so interesting for you both to be there, and then the different experiences and
yeah. So I'm looking forward to like less screen time, less food. Like the food is going to be super simple, just less distraction, I suppose. Like it'll be nice to just have that space. I mean, I was on a yoga retreat, wasn't I, the other week or the other month? I can't remember. It was the beginning of February I did that. But that was very different because there was a lot of people around. It was very community and family. Like we felt like a family in the end, whereas this is going to be more self-study, which is
good transition. Yay.
Which is the theme of what we're going to be talking about today. And I think the ashram experience will be will be a place for me to properly take the time to study myself on and off of the mat.
That's amazing.
I'll report back.
That sounds amazing. Sorry, I just can't get over the fact that we both have an orange background.
I know.
It's really weird. Does it mean something?
Yeah, maybe. What chakra does that? What energy does this bring?
Fire, Manipura.
Oh, yeah. Let's go with that.
Love it. Well, look, that's a perfect transition. So
yeah,
the theme of the pod today is self-study, self-inquiry. It is part of the yoga philosophy. We won't go too much into all of that really, but we just want to talk about self-study and taking that time on and off the mat when it comes to, just that self-inquiry and reflection, which we often don't have time for, but it is really important because we can all get overwhelmed with life. I feel it right now a lot because I just moved here. I feel like there's so much I need to get done to get settled and find work as well, whether it's, as in a yoga studio or other things. And I feel like a lot is going on, and I need that self-study. I need that self-inquiry just to reflect and also acknowledge how much I am doing.
And I think just giving yourself that space so you can become the witness to it as well. So rather than these patterns and these cycles becoming who you are, when you take the time to actually just take a moment to take the step back and inquire, okay, where does this belief come from? What is it linked to? You can start seeing the patterns and the cycles, and that way you can build a relationship with it. So rather than it being who you are, it's almost then you're in a relationship with this part of you and you can work with it instead of against it. And I think that's a really beautiful way to see self-study, is actually we spend our whole lives working against ourselves and trying to fight off these parts of ourselves, right? Whereas yoga teaches us, or yoga philosophy teaches us, to actually sit with ourselves and ask those questions that can be quite confronting. But when we do this, we can then flow with ease and we're not so attached to that being who we are.
And I was just thinking while you were talking there, how confronting it is for me to be here, because I'm now facing my French self. That makes sense.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah.
Because I've been doing everything in my life in English for the past 12 years. And here I can speak French fluently, but there's a struggle with who I am as a in French, first of all, because sometimes you have different personalities in different languages.
Oh, yeah.
And also, how do I show up in a business context in French? And I also have this constant sense of feeling not good enough, and that my French isn't good enough, and that French people would look at me and think, what is she talking about? Or she's not French, she's not one of us, or it's really difficult. And then also maybe because I can sound very French and very fluent, people might think, oh, she's French. But then when I don't say quite the right sentence or show up in the right way, they might think, oh, something's not quite right with her. And so I'm constantly now faced with this, from just talking with friends in French to talking to business owners in French to going to my first yoga class in French. And I'm really faced with that and that self-inquiry, and constantly trying to think, okay, no, but I can do this and I do know a lot. It's just also culturally, they are less open and understanding and encouraging. So for example, in the UK, someone tries, even at school, from most basic sense, you try and do something, you show up, people will be really encouraging, even almost too much. I'll be like, you're so amazing, you're doing great, keep going, like, you've got this. In France, it's like, well, thanks for showing up. You should have showed up anyway. And why didn't you do this perfectly? So it's really hard. So the pressure is like, I need to show up like perfectly. Like, I shared my CV with someone, and if I would have shared it with an English person, they would have been like, oh, well, yeah, so cool, like all of this. But yeah, if you want to tweak this and that, that'd be great. And then, that will just make it better. This person literally was like, oh yeah, so the mistakes in French language for spelling and grammar are this, 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 and this. And that's it. And I was just like, don't take it personally. This is just the French mentality. It doesn't mean they think your CV sucks, but it's difficult.
But isn't it interesting? And I think you can approach these things with, isn't it interesting? I'm having these thoughts, or these are the stories that I'm telling myself. And how wonderful that you have a yoga practice where on the mat. So can I tell a little story from my class this morning? So I went to a beautiful hatha class this morning. And what I really loved about the class was the teacher took the time in between the poses to get you to stand still. And he said, be still and stay connected. Be still and stay connected. Feel the sensations under the feet. Feel the sensations in the palm of the hands. Notice the thoughts. What's the state of your mind today? And I was like, oh, I do feel like I am quite in my head. And I could feel then this little kind of dialogue going on. And this practice when you're on the mat of just noticing these things, you can then use off of the mat, right? So we get to rewire our mind and our nervous system when we practice yoga on the mat, so that then in the outside world, we can use those tools as well. It's like on the mat, you learn how to do the thing, and then off of the mat, you can practice it. But then with the self-inquiry, the self-study part of the yoga philosophy, you can also do that when you're not on the mat. Like that is like a practice that you can do in your journal. You know, that can be like, okay, what were the thoughts that were coming up today? What do I think it's linked to in terms of my emotion? Is it serving me, etc., etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, those moments on the mat where things come together. And yesterday, so I did that first French class, and it was a very spiritual class and a lot of pranayama. And you're right, I noticed how there were actually very few movements we did. Like it wasn't a flow as hatha as well, but it was a very slow, intentional hatha. And again, as you say, we kept coming back to Tadasana, to mountain pose, and just notice, like, how do you feel now? And then you do another asana, and then, or pranayama, and then you pause. How do you feel now? And it was just really special because I'd never done a class quite like that. And so it just keeps showing us how we just have to keep exploring different teachers, different classes, and there's just so much out there, which is so exciting. I love that.
Yeah. There was something else that my teacher said this morning actually as well. When you're in a pose and you can feel that your mind is like, right, I need to get out of this. This is really uncomfortable. Is to actually just take a moment and to reassure yourself you are safe. Right. And in that moment, hold the pose for a little bit longer. Right. Because then you're rewiring that stress response.
Yeah.
Okay. Because in the outside world, if you're like reacting to all of this stress, yeah, you're going to get more stressed. Right. So when we're on the mat and we're in a pose that feels a little bit uncomfortable, we're going to stay there. This is a safe space to explore that discomfort a little bit. And every time you lean into that and reaffirm and tell yourself that you are safe, you're rewiring your nervous system and your thinking and your mind and your body connection. How cool is that?
That is amazing. It's so good. And I think off the mat, I've noticed so in the past year, like how much I'm using yoga off the mat. You know, I was nervous going into town to go and talk to different studios, and we had also a little chat afterwards as well. And I kept saying to myself, like, you know, what you want already wants you. Like, if it's meant to be, like, the universe is got you, and you just need to show up. And so I just kept thinking, okay, I just need to show up and things will work themselves out. Whatever's meant to be, it will work itself out, but I will never know unless I show up. And on that day, I learned so many different things. But if anything, one very special thing I got is I got a really nice connection with the yoga teacher. And I definitely see us becoming friends, and we're going to meet up next week for a coffee. And I think just even that connection, whatever the universe has in store where it comes to work around those studios, I definitely, at least, you know, that universe got me there for that connection for sure. And I think trying to reflect and trust it off the mat as well is just so helpful in your daily life, because we're constantly, as you say, reactive, but then yoga helps us to kind of manage everything.
I think the self-study part, especially with my life coaching background as well, so the clients that I work with, it's all about self-study really. So then being able to incorporate yoga into the coaching journey helps us to manage it in that moment, like with movement and shifting energies. So you're kind of coming at it from every angle, because it isn't just a mind thing, it's a body thing too.
Absolutely. And so, okay, if we want to give people practical tips for self-study, and so let's say around journaling, could you think of like 2-3 prompts of things people could journal to? Perhaps?
So practical tips. Journaling is a really good one. I think journaling, it doesn't have to be every day, but just taking the time to note down a few things that you notice within yourself and being mindful with that. So recognizing the language that you're using when you're talking about yourself. you know? So in your journal, if you're writing, oh, she's so annoying, I did this, and why do I keep doing that? And it's really frustrating. Just again, write it down to start off with and just take a moment to, there's a pattern there in the way that you're talking to yourself. So even when you start journaling, just check out the energy that you're using in the way that you're talking to yourself, because when you're coming at it from that place of judgment, you're going to get stuck with it, right? So we need to shift from judgment into curiosity. So if you're going to journal, do it from a place of, isn't this interesting? That's what I always use. Isn't this interesting that my body is responding in this way, or my mind is thinking this? Isn't this interesting? It opens it up.
I love that, judgment to curiosity. I love that. That's great. Okay. Anything else that we can think of that could be helpful with self-inquiry? I suppose on the mat, right? So on the mat, it's giving yourself that space to notice how you feel. When we begin a practice, we set intentions, but also we take that moment to notice how we feel in the body and in the mind. And then at the end of the practice, coming back to that to notice again how we feel in the body and the mind. And then whatever that is, that's fine. But I think taking that moment to notice is really important. And again, then approaching it with curiosity. It's like, oh, like, that's interesting that I felt this way.
Yeah, off of the mat, I think a great prompt that I always use when something comes up or there's a pattern or something that I recognize, it's, what am I believing about this situation for this to actually be impacting me in this way? So say like when I was on the mat this morning, when I was holding a pose and I was like, well, it's kind of, okay, what am I believing about myself? Well, I believe I should be able to go deeper into the pose. Okay, well, why? Just, yeah, why do I feel like I need to be going deeper into the pose? Well, if I'm not going deep enough, then I'm not good enough, you know. And then you can get to underneath what's actually underneath all these thoughts and these processes. And this is how we rewire and heal and grow and evolve and suffer less in life.
Yeah,
you know.
True.
And that's what yoga is all about. You can stay where you are. Of course you can. You don't have to do this self-inquiry work. But if you're finding that life's really hard and you're really struggling, and there are other ways. And I think it's just reminding yourself that we can't change what happens in our life, but we can change how we relate to ourselves and our inner world. And when you change the inner world, everything outside of you changes too. So think of the way that we see the world as like a mirror. And yoga is just it's a little part of the mirror. And it's a safe space for you to start looking into those things. Absolutely. So when you see the world and the world is happy, it probably means that that's the energy that you've got currently in your nervous system state. If everything seems sad and life's not fair and everything's a struggle, there's probably some energies that are lying a bit stagnant and stuck, or maybe there's some work to do that needs a bit of healing and that sort of thing. So it's all a mirror. If we're happy, the world is going to seem happy. If we're sad, the world is going to seem sad.
Absolutely. And I think,
and there's nothing right or wrong with that. It's all just about perception and what we choose to connect to, I think, is the thing. Sophie and I had a bit of an experience last week where we were at this hostel. We called it the Hostel of Horrors, because there were so many things that didn't go right with the expectation that we had. We could have chosen to, we could have, with no awareness at all, just got into this kind of anxiety spiral and had the worst weekend ever. But because we have both been on a bit of a personal development journey, there's the yoga practice, there's all of these things, we chose to have fun, right? We chose to actually take a moment, acknowledge what we were feeling, and choose to embody, it is what it is, right? There's nothing we can do about this. What stories am I telling myself? How can I step into and make this like a weekend that we're going to make the most memorable weekend ever? And it's little moments like that where yoga then actually comes into real life, and you're like, wow, we had the best weekend in the end.
That's the best example. There's the best example. It's just observing it, what it is, for what it is, and then choosing to make the best out of it. And I think that's the best way you can live your life. It's kind of the only way for it to make sense.
Yeah, because there's a lot of suffering, right? And we have to acknowledge that we are living a human life. We're gonna feel things, we're gonna worry about things, there's gonna be fear. We're not trying to take that away, we're not trying to bypass this stuff. We're human, right? But we are in control of how we respond to these things.
Absolutely.
It's all a choice at the end of the day. So, and this self-study just gives you more space to choose. Anything else you would like
that's
to
a
add?
great way to finish the pod, to be honest. Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about this a lot. There's so many stories and examples that we could share, but if anyone has any they want to share with us, we would love to hear how you've maybe recognized or done some self-study on the mat and then seen it play out into your life as well. Because pretty cool. So yoga is definitely not just about the movement on the mat. The philosophy deepens and takes this into something that can improve your whole life.
Absolutely. Can't say it better than you, B. So with
that,
we're
here, we're living it. So next episode we will talk about the ashram experience, because I would have done it by then.
I think that sounds great. I will have loads of questions for you.
Please come with your questions.
Ashram. Really exciting. And also, in terms of other news that's coming up, we are very close to confirming the location for our retreat in October. So more to come on that very, very soon. Hopefully, I think by the time this pod is out, the details of the retreat will be available. And so we can't wait to practice with you in person. Reach out to us, and we'll see you on the mat.
See you on the mat.